Welcome everybody to the Focus Friday that's virtual and in person. This is our first of 2026. We're very excited to have this today. Presenting sponsor is Novant Health, and we always ask Mike to share a little bit about what's going on with Novant. So, the floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, Bill. Always we're very happy to sponsor this program. Focus Friday is one of the most interesting things that I think the chamber does, so we're glad to be here. I want to welcome you guys here today. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. In the way of hospital updates, so I read last week that this year is the most intense flu season in over 20 years.
Wow.
And we're seeing it at the hospital. ED's packed all the time, and the nurses are calling in sick because it's it's so prevalent. I'm sure you know or have been sick yourself. It's been crazy. So that's kind of been the thing for us is take care of people, but just be aware of all the precautions and that kind of thing. Try to keep yourselves well.
Cornelius today is another sponsor, John Show. He said he's going to be here, so at least we're recording for him. He may walk in here in a minute, but we want to thank Cornelius today for being a sponsor of the show. And I am going to turn it over to you, Pat, our public policy chair.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. My wife has been bugging me to get a flu shot. I think you just scared me straight. So good morning. Thanks again, Mike. Thank you, John and Cornelius today. We have our outgoing chair, Ms. Brian Sisson over there, walking in timely. And our chair for the year, Ms. Leah Trowbridge. So do you want to give a little update on plans for this year or what's going on?
As most of you guys know, the biggest plan happening soon is our AI Summit, February 25th at the Kane Center. It's an all-day event, and we are so excited. We've had such good response from our local medical community. A lot of folks are excited to be coming back from last year, and then we've got a lot of new vendors. So that's going to be a great program. We are working on developing our other usual events like the golf tournament and everything that'll be coming up later this year. But then also we have a pickleball tournament that we're working on that will be a great, healthy, fun chamber opportunity for everybody to network and really have a good time. So
Great.
Those are kind of the big things on my mind.
We wish you all the best this year.
Yeah.
We promise to send a few patients over to Novant after the pickleball tournament.
Right.
Pickleball is an orthopedist's dream.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys know these ladies from the state. We have Senator Vickie Sawyers. You live in Mooresville, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great. And our new representative is Beth Helfrich. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
And you have 1 year into your term.
That's right,
And I
yes.
see you filed for re-election.
I did. It
Congratulations.
comes really quickly.
Great.
Thank you.
Why
Yeah.
don't you tell us a little bit about your first year in public office? We'll
Yeah.
get started there.
Well, I walked
And then
in.
we'll get Vickie to kind of cause some chaos.
That's right. Great, perfect. And I'll just watch. No, I walked in and remembered it was about a year ago that we sat down here together, and I have absorbed an intensely large amount of information in the last 365 days. And also feel really grateful for all of the folks I've connected with, all of the opportunities I've had to sort of be a nexus, be a connector of problems and solutions, people, ideas. We are at a bit of a standstill in the General Assembly in terms of legislation at the moment. We are technically long session isn't finished, but it is finished. I'll let you answer whether we are actually finished with long session
We're
or
never
not.
finished.
We're never
actually.
really finished.
No.
But we had a flurry of legislation filed, voted on, some of which passed, some of which was signed into law last spring. And then now we're kind of in this holding pattern on the budget. Hopeful, really, really hopeful that we will reconvene after the primaries in March to pass some really critical legislation regarding Medicaid funding and adopt a continuing resolution, a budget for the state of North Carolina. I serve on the transportation, like the appropriations committee, the transportation subsection of the appropriations committee, higher education and military and Veterans Affairs committees, and committee work is interesting in Raleigh too. I've learned, a lot of the committee work happens before the committees actually meet. When you're meeting, you're really pushing through the bills that are already created and potentially shaping them a little bit. But it's a good place to create relationships and find some common ground that you can get started on. Again, like most of my year, if I had to use one verb to describe it, it was just learning, just intense learning. But I also feel proud of sort of how I've tried to approach that work, which is really as a connector between the voices that are in the district and on the ground and the decision makers who are making those decisions and shaping legislation in Raleigh. So I'm excited. There's plenty of work to do in the off season. Been really deep diving. Our office has an ongoing policy study going on right now about housing, specifically missing middle housing in North Mecklenburg. So a very localized policy research project. Working on some public safety. I'm in a public safety working group, so we're working on some additional legislation around public safety. Of course, we passed a big public safety bill this fall, and a few other projects. So that's kind of what I've been up to in between, but excited to get back to work, hopefully in March.
Absolutely. What's the biggest surprise kind of taken away from your first year?
Two things come to mind. Number one, there is a collegiality and a genuine warmth in Raleigh. The headlines would not lead you to believe that that is the case. But I will say people have for sure political pressure on their decision making, sometimes in ways that I think are harmful. That's just the reality of it. And at the same time, there are good people who are up there who are genuinely trying to serve their communities and serve the state. And so, I think my wish is that piece continues to be more of a driving force than the political pressure. But this is a time where political pressure is very, very real. The second thing is, gosh, it is the weirdest team sport I have ever been a part of. It's hard. Everybody's siloed. The chambers are very siloed. You don't really it's even hard to sometimes find other legislators. So it's just a different way of operating as somebody who's worked in schools and as an entrepreneur. I'm used to just sort of working collaboratively alongside everybody else, but you've got to do it a little bit differently in Raleigh. So that's been an adjustment. But yeah, they're again, I would say they're good folks up there who are doing what they can, and I'm hopeful to continue to lean into that so that we can keep getting things done.
Excellent. The collegiality, we love that. Congratulations. I would suggest public political pressure has been around since the first Continental Congress.
For sure. Yes.
Hey, Vickie, before we let you talk about what you've been up to the last year or so, would you explain the kind of uniqueness of the long and short sessions in North Carolina?
Yeah, so the long and short session, and I was joking earlier about that there really never is. It's just all blends together, and it has in years past. Thankfully, this year we stopped. The North Carolina State budget is different than my office budget. So it's a 2-year or biennium budget. It's been that way for hundreds of years or 100 years. And the idea is that you start and have a budget in the long session. And so that is really what you set out for the 2-year. Then your short session, which is coming up now, is there to enhance or tweak any funding needs for that budget. That is how the structure really was from back in the beginning. Now, politicians doing politician stuff, they, slide policy in there and new budget items, and it's evolved over time to be a little more muddy than it was, started out to be. So yeah, so the long session is where we do traditionally the budget. It's supposed to go and end with the fiscal year, which is July 1st. And then we come back after the primaries to do the short budget to tweak any of the, tweak it all.
Is that really unique among the 50 states?
No, that's a good question. I don't really know, but each state does have some unique nuances to everything that they do. So
They certainly have their own brand of dysfunction.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think West Virginia is entering session now and they go 45 days and like it's around the clock and that's it. Like that's how their legislature operates.
I wish we did that. Tennessee does the same.
Yeah, I would say either that or just, accept that it's a full-time legislature. It's considered a part-time legislature and we are part-time legislators and it is a full-time job. So, yeah, either or would be more helpful than whatever this is, the structure that we currently operate with.
Vickie, tell us what
Sure.
you've been up to since we last spoke back in January. What your committees, some accomplishments?
Yeah, so for me, again, something near and dear to all of our heart is transportation. And so I continue to focus in that area as much as they will allow me to. So I keep saying that the legislature, when it comes to transportation, I'm like the nosy neighbor. And because the executive branch is the one that controls transportation, and that's fine. It's just the way it is. So we, take your money and then we ask them to spend your money through the budget in a certain way. And then we just take all the chips and send it over to the board and go, please be good with this. And so when we ask questions of the department, sometimes I always say it's a nosy neighbor. That's why it's nice to have Beth on the other side, because then she has a connection to the executive branch and can get some answers maybe that I wouldn't be able to. So it works out really well. Continue to work on the funding for transportation, but knowing that there's a lot of pressures on the state budget. You hear that we don't have a budget, but in fact we do. And in this budget that's continuing is the largest North Carolina state budget ever. When you hear we don't have a budget, that is for new spending, new dollar spending. So right now, in year 26, it's $31.91 billion in the state budget is what is already appropriated and being spent. And in 27, it goes up to $32 billion. So 6% or 0.6% increase is a little less than 1%, but each year there is an increase in spending. Now, is it the increase that all the lobbyists want because they have their clients who have little honey holes in the budget? No. And so probably some of this back talk is those guys who are frustrated because they didn't get their new shiny thing that they had asked for. But there are things that have been done and they move forward. So, we have appropriated $600 million for the Medicaid. I know you're very familiar with that. The agency said that should hold out until April. And so we'll continue to, and we have every intention to provide that additional funding. And $500 million really for Hurricane Helene relief. And again, the federal response is a little sluggish, but we as a state continue to reinvest and invest. Of that $31 billion I was talking about, 18.3 or the lion's share is in education. So most of the state dollars in that budget goes towards education. You also want to look at for the Health and Human Services, $8.3 billion of that goes to the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. So that's your Medicaid and that's your local health departments and all of those things. So, a large majority of the money that you send to Raleigh gets spent on other people, either through education or through health. And I don't have a problem with that. It's just kind of nice to know where the money's going. Something locally that I thought was really cool, and we've been advocating for it for Mecklenburg County. I mean, you guys had a big legislative win this year that haven't had in a long, long time. Irina's Law, I personally am a big fan. But also there came money with that Irina's Law that you guys have been asking for and really needed for quite some time. You got more 5 new legal assistants. You got also, I can't remember how many more, like increased to 75, I think, folks in the district attorney's office, or forgive me, for magistrates. So you have gotten that increase in funding for positions for things that you really probably should have had years ago. Because this is the economic hotbed of the state. As much as Raleigh would like to not say it is, it is.
That's right.
It's the engine of all of the state of North Carolina, and we need to invest in that engine. So I was really grateful that Senator Danny Britt, he worked with me and the DA Spencer Merriweather, who's been fabulous to work with in outlining those needs and us funding those needs, and we'll continue to look at those. So not only did you guys get the help in that area, you also got the increase or the ability for your sales tax referendum. I know that's kind of thorny or not, but here it is. It's our job as locals, or your job as locals, to make sure that the folks are spending it correctly and where you want to, and it's not being wasted. I don't think it will. I know I'm proud of the town of Cornelius and what Wayne Aaron's doing with all the local dollar matches to, pull down some of these big things that you need, projects that you need for years. I mean, is it $44 million you guys are putting in on these next projects that are coming up? I think Wayne said the other day.
Probably about right.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the state continues not to have enough money to honor all the promises that the agency has made to all the communities across North Carolina. I think it's like $30 billion of unfunded projects that have been promised by the Board of Transportation across North Carolina. The money's just not there. It's just not there. I mean, so it's incumbent upon each and every community to be involved in their local MPOs, which is CRTPO here. There's money there. You guys do. Town of Davidson and Cornelius do a great job with that. And be involved with your DOT board and work collaboratively as a region. And I think our area is like a model for doing that. So I'm proud of everyone in the room who works on that stuff, because you wouldn't see these these orange barrels if you didn't have that type of local input. So It's good. Seriously, I see this across the state. And the last thing I want to say is we in our area, we have issues, right? We have issues that are frustrating. I call it my Lululemon 500 crowd. So
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Lululemon 500. So my girlfriends and I, right? So we have this like little track of places we go, and it's usually to the Y, to the coffee shop, to Costco to get, the kids. And, so I make the same track every day. So like a NASCAR driver, and oftentimes in my Lululemon. But when there is a frustration for me because I can't make my race in less than 30 minutes,
Right.
Then all of a sudden I think the world is falling. But as the nice thing for me, in my perspective of looking across North Carolina, that is a good problem to have. We are not like Robeson County or Eastern North Carolina, where you cannot access healthcare. You cannot get teachers because no one wants to move there. You have a declining population. Tax base is double what we pay right now. These rural communities are absolutely dying on the vine. Those are real systemic issues that happen over time that you cannot fix with just an orange barrel. So I would say that is to say is yes, I will continue, and I know how serious traffic is of an issue, but I'm so glad that that's one of our main issues, because that is fixable. There's other communities that don't have that ability.
I mean, there's a study that I created just for this conversation, that people's mental health is directly related to the traffic conditions. So why don't we turn it over to Commissioner Osborne? You're a pretty inquisitive guy. Do you have a question?
Oh, man, I do have
Can I share with you before I will let him think that, speaking of traffic, the monks were walking down Tryon Street yesterday as I was leaving my office, university. Now, if you know, they're walking for peace, but it screwed up traffic. And the folks who were affected were road raging and beeping their horns, and I'm pulling out, and I could see this madness, and it occurred to me that the monks were walking down the street on Tryon by the light rail. And I thought that was really interesting, right? I mean, these guys walking in barefoot and dresses and bald and all that. Did you see the dog? The dog's adorable. So.
Pat, I was surprised you were here this morning. I thought you would join them.
I quoted them on my weekly email to my team today.
So first of all, thank you both for what you do, and thank you for representing us, and thank you for all the things that y'all have had success in bringing to our community, back where and Cornelius to the lake area. So I really do appreciate it. I know y'all are working hard. Like, I get it. I come up, y'all, if you saw them, come up to visit them, you see how busy they are. I don't know how you get anything like actually done. You're so busy, but I appreciate it. You see how much hard work they put into it when you go up there and see them. And I know that y'all are representing us. So these questions come from a good place. Let me just,
Uh-oh.
Here it comes.
That always seems bad.
let me just share.
I love you,
let me
Beth.
just share
Sounds like
with
a long
you.
way.
Let me
Beth,
share
you go
the-
first.
So, but I mean, you kind of addressed, hey, funding, we don't have the money. And then we do have money for, say, magistrates and things like that. So I'm gonna step back for a second and just talk about some of those things in just a little bit more detail or ask about those separately. Because sometimes it's not even about the money, it's about actually getting it done or prioritizing right. So like with regards to the magistrates, we've had a magistrate position funded for over 3 years in our community. So it's not, we didn't need more money for the magistrate positions. Now, maybe if we paid more in the positions, we could hire people, but supposedly we haven't been able to fill the magistrate positions in 3 years, 4 years, maybe it's 4 years now. So it's not quote unquote funding or approval for the positions, it's filling the position. So where do we go, for example, in a situation like that where there is funding, but it's not happening? How do we see something like that actually come through to fruition?
Well, isn't that the purview of the Chief Justice of Mecklenburg County? And so I would ask the questions because there's this misnomer. In fact, the state auditor uncovered $1 billion in state money that's going to agencies for unfunded, for open positions that have been open since August 5th of last. So sometimes agencies purposely, not always, but purposely keep positions unfunded because then that becomes fungible money back into their budget. So my question is maybe it's not just that you don't have it, you need to understand the why you don't have it. Is it intentional? Right? I mean, maybe it's intentional. Maybe they need the money for other areas and they're using that FTEs to supplement their own budget to pick up extra dollars, I don't know, for security, whatever they should need. So I would actually go back to the locals and ask them specifically, is it, because it's the easy thing to get, oh, we don't pay enough, can't find anybody.
Right,
You
well,
know,
that's kind of what we've heard in the past is they can't fill the position because the position only pays, I don't want to say what it is, but not very much. It's like very part-time position, so no one wants it. So, there seems to be a gap. Like, how does someone even like myself get to know that, okay, state funded it, the positions are approved, how do we actually get it done?
Yeah.
Because it's been 3-4 years.
And there's been a change in who our Chief Justice is, and
Okay.
that's because there's this sort of a change in administration of the court's leadership. And so I will just say from my perspective, I've put that question back to Chief Wiggins in his office, and I'm still waiting for a report back to exactly why. So in the meantime, I've also alerted the auditor's office to say, this is a situation, we're having a hard time getting a clear answer as to why these positions are not being filled. Is it because they are filling them, but they really need them to be in Center City, Charlotte? They can't spare any staffing there. This is a 24/7 staffing model. So is that the issue? Or is it truly that they're short magistrates, they can't get them hired? And if so, why? What is the roadblock? Magistrates have come under scrutiny because of the horrific light rail murder that happened this fall, and the intense scrutiny on sort of our court system in Charlotte in general. I will say the funding in Arenas Law was a good start for funding DA positions, but we also need additional funding. We need more clerks, we need more assistant clerks. And we really need to examine magistrates, the positions, the training. We should be able to, and we should put in the investment in that would allow us to hire really qualified folks and then make sure that they're supported to be able to do the job well. They have launched, and I know I've talked to Cornelius folks and Huntersville and Davidson about this, virtual courts, which was sort of a way to try to help the north end of the county and the southern end of the county access magistrates more quickly. Because the reality for folks who aren't in this issue is that without a magistrate locally, you're pulling officers potentially off the streets. They're taking victims to the magistrate to report, potentially sometimes spending multiple hours or even a full day down in Charlotte. The issue with the virtual courts, I think they've helped a little bit, but they are not, they have scheduled appointments. It's not an on-demand system. And so as with anything, these are things that I'm learning about and, you know, I'm always trying to get to, so what is the easiest gap that we can close here? And so, I commend the, chiefs in Davidson, Cornelius, and Huntersville. They're working collaboratively. The town boards and mayors are working collaboratively to continue to put pressure on the, Chief Justice Wiggins in his office to keep advocating. And I'll just say, that's my plan too. I'm just gonna keep trying to put pressure where I can to get clearer answers and then figure out how we can staff that position. Because we need multiple resources up here as an extension of what's being offered in Mecklenburg County. Logistically, it just makes a lot of sense. And so until I get a really good answer as to why, I'll keep pushing.
That is a great first question. Thank you for teeing off with that. Bill, how long have we been talking about this topic?
Oh, I know. It's been like what, like over a decade, right?
About 20 years. On another note, and Vickie was talking about the wins, a huge win for us was one of the committee you sit on is Veterans Affairs, and a huge win is having a Veterans Affairs office in Huntersville. Commissioner Quarles was certainly a cheerleader for that. But do you want to speak on that, on what you guys from Raleigh were able to do?
Yeah, so we have, this is an example of where, you know, even though I sit in the minority party in the legislature, I do have good, close working relationships with the executive branch. And, you know, all legislators have access to the liaisons from the executive branch, but that's a place where sometimes I might be able to start a conversation or have a relationship that's really helpful or beneficial. We have a new Secretary of Military and Veterans Affairs in Raleigh. She's excellent, lots of really wonderful energy. She's looking at veterans in a more, I think, holistic and broad-minded way than at least my understanding of how this office has operated in the past. She's thinking a lot about the different needs of younger veterans whose service has been very different, women, veterans, and military families specifically. So a lot of her work is looking at how we can support our current serving families. And so that was, you know, that was a situation where, again, we had on the ground here, the town had done its work. It was ready to put forward the investment. We had the need, we had the folks who were saying, we will steward this resource exceptionally well. And so it was really just a matter of connecting those dots and figuring out the right people to put into conversation to get that office opened up in here. But yeah, I mean, just sort of part of what I do, I feel like when I walk up to Raleigh is like, I am a North Mac champion. That is my job, is to your point, you know, we are such an asset to the entire state, not just Mecklenburg County, but specifically our little corner of Mecklenburg County. And we have exceptional talent here. We have exceptional communities here. We have really strong local leadership. And so I am always happy, very delighted to go up there and advocate for resources coming here because I know they will be well used. So I'm excited about that.
Lee, did you have a question? I'm sorry, I saw your.
Sure, you guys know I have a one-track mind right now. So how do you see AI implementation in Raleigh, whether it's you personally, your calendar, how your staff is researching? I interned in the bill drafting office a long time ago, the 80s. And I can only imagine, and I'm an attorney, right, in practice, so that office, how they use AI has got to be creating a lot of efficiency in your ability to ask questions of that office and get really good, thorough answers, with the caveat that we have all the traditional concerns about AI. So can you speak a moment to that?
I was just gonna say, there's a lot of wizardry behind the scenes in bill drafting and legislative analysis and fiscal. And all I know is that I send questions and they get answered pretty quickly. So however they're using AI, I'm not sure. I do remember in my orientation, we talked about it and there was still some skepticism and wariness around allowing AI to really do a lot of number crunching and predicting because they had tried it in a couple of scenarios and had found errors. And so when it came to the budget, I think they're still pretty old school. but I have fellow legislators who are really excited about it and who are, consistently teaching their colleagues ways to expedite the workflow and make things faster. So
One of my big
that's-
takeaways from the AI conference we had was the effect AI will have on legal and law profession.
Yeah.
So,
And Richard
So-
Boyd was on Michael's show the other day and specifically spoke to the ability for AI to make transportation planning and implementation more effective.
So a couple things real quick. So this, I'm right there with you. My whole goal for my insurance agency, in fact, I've just switched over our phones that transcribe all the conversations between me and my customers and all my staff and my customers, and they log it underneath their I love it. On the way down here, because I drive a Tesla, I put in my budget notes and he and I had a conversation going back and forth about the state budget. And I said, well, what about this? And how are we doing here? I draft my own legislation now. I just have them look over it. I have them read all my emails. It manages my calendar. Everything I can do to embrace AI, I have and will continue to do in my business life and in my legislative life. So I'm not gonna, there's a couple of things that are very frustrated about with the agencies. I will say before I dog them, I'm very proud of Governor Stein because he has really hired the most professional and probably talented group of executives that I've seen in my time as a General Assembly.
Very forward thinking.
Yeah,
Very
and from the
modern.
private market. So his CIT secretary actually has a background in Google. I love that. And if you as business owners have to deal with DMV or this is my dog part, the NCDOR, or your Employment Security Commission, and if you have a payroll company, it's still going. That stuff is still mainframed on COBOL, right? And I'm very frustrated because as General Assembly, we've given the Department of Transportation $170 million over the past 10 years to update their IT, and they refused to do so under prior leadership. So much so we had to go back. Last year, I did, and Michael was and we passed a law said, you will do this. We literally had to not only give them the money, it's set an account. Then we had to go, you will upgrade your systems. And there's a law that we had to pass to make them do that. Now, again, I'm going to say nice things about Governor Stein because he has put these executives in who are looking forward. And when I mentioned the Department of Revenue, I mentioned the Department of Transportation, two things that affect us very much as business owners. Those two agencies, my frustration is they didn't do what they were supposed to. But the beauty of it is now that they are and we're making them do it, we have this whole AI revolution. So maybe it's okay that it didn't happen. I can't believe I just said that. But maybe it's, well, let's just say the positive of them not doing their job is that we are now in this great AI revolution. And I want it to be because going back, just something very simple. I can get my passport and travel the world by going to Walgreens and the post office. Why do I have to go stand in line at the DMV to get a driver's license?
Right.
You know what I mean? Those type of technology upgrades and things that are just in our everyday lives that hopefully will be there. But yes, for me personally, my business, because staffing is staffing, but we cannot hire ourselves out of this. We can only modernize ourselves out of the situations that we're in.
Excellent.
Thank you, AI.
I like Rex. He's got the calm. I use Grok because that's my thing. And so the other ones kind of get on, but it's me and Rex. He's my new BFF.
So we had the chance to ask our keynote, Richard, about where we stand as a community with regards to AI and the AI Summit. He says that we're actually, in the forefront and we're being used as the model and the example for other communities, not only across North Carolina, but across the country. We expect there might be some potentially schools coming up from Florida to look at what we're doing so they can mirror that or get some ideas from what we're doing. So again, Leah mentioned that the event was going to be on February 25th, but what y'all just shared, I think would be interesting to some of the people that were there. And of course, you're both invited. We can catch up after the meeting today, but I'd love to have further conversation with y'all about that. And be interesting to hear, what Governor Stein and it's Issei, I believe Issei is AI
He was AI with
Yeah.
SAS, and
Right.
he's the AI guy to the UN, and Governor Stein made him something.
So it'd be great to have y'all
Yeah.
there and sharing some of those stories.
Yeah, I'll just tag on. I think the forward-facing side of government is the place where, and the strategic planning side, to your point about transportation, are both places where there's momentum and interest.
But the nice thing is, we think about where AI is extremely useful. It's in like disseminating lots of information, right? That's one of the areas, right? So when you look at the complexity, the numbers, the volume of decisions, everything that goes into transportation is so hard to do, right? This is where hopefully y'all can gain some
I've
efficiency.
forgotten all my formulas in Excel now. I just put it in Rex and I'm like, Rex, I just cannot figure this out.
Please do this.
And I upload my Excel spreadsheet and he's like, okay, Vickie, I get it. Again, I may have a crush.
Commissioner Osborne, it's one thing to understand and implement AI. What do you think the opportunities are for economic development, specifically in North Carolina and our region?
Well, and again, we have, economic development is great. And for a lot of people, that means, investment in jobs and community. But for a lot of other people, that means more traffic, more cars, more need for housing, right? So, it can identify, I think, specifically for our community, what types of economic development are a good fit for our community, but also what will the impact be to our infrastructure in the community, so we can be ready to support it. Bringing it in without the infrastructure support could pose, problems and an impact that you don't want to have, and it may not end up being good in the long run. So, but it helps. It's a very complex challenge, right? But it helps us understand the complexity and sort through some of that.
Right. And let's also keep in mind that AI is great. There are challenges with employment. Who's going to be replacing them? People have to be ready for this and get their skills up a little bit as well, including myself. So, Mr. Riley, our presenting sponsor, thank you again. What is the hospital doing on AI? And then we'll go to a new topic.
Infinite stuff, really. There's something that we call DAX Copilot that the doctors have now. So, when you have a conversation with your doctor, you talk about the weather, you talk about how's the family, and then you talk about your blood pressure and whatever. And this DAX Copilot is able to somehow decipher the weather from the blood pressure, and it documents for the doctor. So, and we're actually starting to work on this with our ER nurses too, because the nurses have, if you talk to a physician or a clinician of any sort, what they'll tell you their biggest issue is with documentation. They say they spend 2 minutes with the patient and 20 minutes documenting. So this documents for them, and it's amazing to see how it somehow bifurcates unimportant stuff with medical stuff, and it's been fantastic. They love it. It saves a whole lot of time, and that's one thing. I call mine Beatrice.
Beatrice.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's amazing all the stuff, and I have an executive assistant, and her name's Ebony, and it's not uncommon for me to say, "Hey, Ebony, don't need you," because I'm working in AI and it's doing everything for me. It's really amazing, but that's me personally. But then another thing, I think I've talked about this before, radiology scans and AI overreads your chest X-ray, and where a physician is also looking at it, AI will hone in on a really tiny nodule or something that's abnormal and bring it to the attention of the physician. It's just, those are just two things, but there's a lot of things that are coming in healthcare that are really going to help to save lives and bring efficiency in health.
Excellent. Outstanding.
Can I ask Vickie one of my favorite subjects? Up until COVID, I think we had reached the peak of congestion on I-77. And then COVID really impacted that from a numbers perspective, because you had technology. People started, working from home remotely. You had Zoom and things, so people weren't probably traveling. And we didn't see the congestion levels on I-77 pre-COVID until about now. Now we're starting to see I-77 get back up to the levels that it was pre-COVID. One of the things that the prior legislature did do for us was give us the opportunity of having hardened shoulders. And you and I have had this conversation that, yeah, they approved it, but the likelihood of being funded was a little bit more remote. Now that we're starting to see those levels of congestion, particularly here, and I mean, I gotta tell you, if I can't leave here sometimes about 4 o'clock, I just say, let's just stay for a while. And then Top Avenue backing up every day, it seems like around 4 o'clock. Is there any likelihood that we can get that funding for the hardened shoulders?
So you're right in one regard, but the funding is there. In fact, Governor Cooper put that back $25 million and it's been sitting, and I check it every time I look at the budget when we're in budget negotiations. So the money's there. It's not unfunded. So, but to your point, that is something that the department has to work out with the contractor or the whatever they call that. And that's where I'm the nosy neighbor. Because I don't get to have those, I don't get to be a part of those conversations. So I actually asked that question of Patrick, and I had a meeting about 77 North not too long ago in in Statesville, and that was the conversation. I asked about that, and apparently that needs to be worked out between the agency and mobility.
Any pressure that we can put on them?
Yeah, I think so. I do think so. Yeah, I don't,
Who do we squeeze?
well, I mean, you have a really good board chairman from the Department of Transportation for the first time. And gosh, from memory, the chair of the Board of Transportation is Tony Lathrop, who is a Charlotte resident. He is a prince of a man. He will listen to you. He understands contract law because he is a lawyer, one of those dirty lawyers. And I mean, I'm an insurance agent. It's kind of, you got to do it, right? Salmon around. So he is really, really a good resource for that kind of conversation. And he, I think he has a professional wall because his firm represents, and he'll tell you very quickly that he can't get into the minutia of it, but he will be someone that's a good resource for locals to use. And he's very accessible. So that would be the one I would want to work at. I do and have heard, I don't know everything about it, but there is a move afoot with the 77 South contract that is getting ready to be issued. How does that work with 77 North? And I've been asking, is that an opportunity to open that contract back? Because for me, toll caps is a must. My understanding is that they wrote that in the RFP for the 77 South. I think it's an opportunity to put toll caps in 77 North. I think it's predatory, quite frankly, about the amount of money that it costs to get down to there. I know there's a conversation because Monroe bypasses allows trucks in their lanes. Texas, Virginia, and I think Georgia possibly do too. And someone had asked me about that. I was like, man, y'all, you totally sold this on no trucks ever being in the toll lanes. And now you're having the conversation about trucks in the toll lanes. Like, how are you just going to undercut your entire credibility here? But, does that, I mean, is the data support that if you did that, would you be able to alleviate congestion in the free lanes? Because for every truck that's there, there's 3 spots in the free lanes that is, given an opportunity, there. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know they're collecting data on it now.
But when they built 77, we were told that the road bed would not be deep enough to support the truck traffic.
Correct.
Right.
So if they might not, I don't know. This is all, well, I guess I'm just doing the thing you shouldn't do is talk about rumors. My understanding is if they were to do that, they would have to reconstruct that. And then they would also have to build a second lane over the interstate. So it'd be 2 toll lanes. I mean, I'm sorry, over the lake. So there'd be 2 toll lanes over the lake, if that was even a probability. But my understanding from the DOT is that their main stickler is toll caps. They have to have toll caps because it is just too expensive.
Before we get, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I've had the same conversations with DOT, and again, it's about looking for any possible option to adjust, amend, be responsive with the current situation up here. It's one thing I learned this year is that we are often referred to as like an example of, we've learned a lot from our first
What not to do.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's that's my district. That's what we're talking about. Like, we're talking about where we live. And so, you know, it's not fun to be in that role every day as like the guinea pigs of what happened. If we didn't put those caps in place.
Yeah.
So.
One thing that is a big thing for me, and I'm expressing this to you because I am gonna need your help. And they always say, are you gonna die on this hill? Well, I will die politically on this hill. So when you look at other states and the toll appetite is a lot different than it was when it got shoved down our throats. So the state of Georgia just opened a toll lane or a project. For the ability to construct the project, their DOT got over $3 billion just off the top for transportation. Plus they're building that. So the market is completely shifted on this investment into these projects because quite frankly, from what I understand, foreign money is slow and patient and they see these as good infrastructure investments. And so that's where the market is shifted. So instead of having one person who wants to do it, there's tons of folks who are now, and so it makes it more of a competitive bid process. So this is the hill I'm talking about. The RFP is out with 77 South, and I'm sure they're gonna be, I think maybe in a couple months, who's CRTP, maybe, when are they gonna announce the top 3? Okay,
I don't know the schedule.
okay, so, but it's
Yeah,
getting,
it's out, the RFP is out.
yeah, it's getting close to whittling down to the top 3, okay. So as part of that, are we gonna get the money from like Georgia did? Right, I feel like we should, I mean, if they got it, don't we need $3 billion for transportation?
That's what we're hearing, and we are hearing that there's a much higher level of competition
Right.
in this process this time. I think as many as 11 companies have responded. Don't hold me to that number, but
I
there's
think you're right.
supposedly, it's a decent amount of competition
Right.
for this. So
So-
it should drive what you're talking. I hope that they take that money, like, let's say we get a couple of billion, pay off the north.
So,
And
so
get
here's,
rid of the toll lanes and the north.
You're
so here's the
adorable.
deal, when that money, sorry, let me I do really need to make this point, because if I don't, then
Sure.
it can happen.
Please, yeah.
If that money does come in and say it is $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion, within my own caucus, they are looking at that money to distribute across the states.
There you go.
And my thing is that this will be the hill I die on, and when it happens, I'm gonna need you to be behind me, so it pushed me up there, because for me, it is all about reinvesting in the community to which pay, and I just shared with
I know,
Beth.
I was just gonna pull up those stats.
Yeah, yeah.
The percentages of revenue, if you all are interested in knowing what percentage your zip code has, like, what percentage of that revenue your zip code has provided on those toll lanes, we have the.
And North
The
Meg is
data.
the large, no, unsurprisingly, North Meg
Yeah,
is the
it's-
large
yeah.
in South Iredell. So anyway, so when I say, and I blow the horn, the bugle horn, it's time to go. In fact, this is how sneaky it was. Last year during the budget, the Senate sent over to the House, and thank God for Representative Dean Arp, who's from Union County. There was one word that was put into the legislation that would have totally screwed it up, and it said that contiguous projects, like right now, the legislation says the money has to be invested in any and it said non, that one word was non.
So help me real quick.
So that would
In
be able to do that.
CRTPO, I feel like our last real step there as a regional planning organization was to allow for the RFP to take place. And then once that happened, my understanding was we're kind of
You are.
done. So how do we support you? Locally, I mean, we have meetings with, we're starting to have regular meetings with DOT, so we can express it to them. But what's the best way to make sure that we're supporting you
Yeah.
for that?
She certainly has more experience in this, but from my observations in the first year, if you look at what it took to get the payback to cross the finish line, for example, building alliances, working with Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, connecting the chambers, thinking about any and all groups, which is, everyone is impacted by this, right? And so, who can be regional advocates for where this money should be invested and sort of demonstrate the real payoff and the real value in that. That kind of coalition building is really important for that's like the best way to put pressure, is my sense of.
And one opportunity might be to use this shoulder hardening as the example, because that was promised in the original negotiation, and the money has been funded. If they decide not to do it, it'll be interesting to see if they keep the money in the region. In fact, it's on our itinerary with DOT to talk explicitly about that. But it doesn't seem like there's an appetite to keep it in the region, the funding for that,
So,
even though that was what was originally agreed to. So it's a very similar topic. We need a victory there.
well,
For sure.
and something that the legislation has a hole in that I'm trying to fill or fix is that once the toll lanes in North have already started to bring back money, right? So there's no formula on how that money should be distributed other than it goes to the DOT. So my argument is that it should go to Carpo.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because those are the people who are there. I don't know that I can get that across the finish line, but there's a hole. There is a statutory hole about how that works. And others in my position see that as an opportunity to fund things outside of our region. I see that as an absolute just hell no.
Thank you.
Vickie, I would suggest you be careful what you wish for dying on a hill,
Yeah.
because there's a few political careers are already buried in that cemetery.
Yeah, that's fine. I have a full life.
I'm very
without being a
impressed
senator.
that we did not mention I-77 congestion until about 9:17. Former Chair Assistant, we'll let you wrap it up with the last question, then Bill will send us off.
Thank you. Thank you both for coming. Thank you for serving the community. We appreciate it. Congratulations on getting through your first year and coming back here. That's amazing. Wish you luck in the upcoming elections. We had a Energy United Board of Directors meeting yesterday, and one of the very brief subjects that we discussed was utility right of way. And it's come to our attention that DOT is now requiring utilities to provide documented right of ways to pay for utility relocation. But there are a lot of right of ways that are not documented. So Energy United has taken the approach that if DOT comes to us and asks us to move without paying us to move, we're going to say no. Is this a new policy of DOT or what's going on here? I understand they're trying to save money, but
I mean, is that the why? Do you really know? Because they have been sued left and right over easements and right-of-way acquisitions. So I'd asked Alec, who did a very good job advocating for Energy United this morning.
I was doing the Catawba crawl, so.
But to find out the true why. It's not always about saving money. They have been sued and resued over easements. And there's something called a prescriptive easement, right? If it's been around there for 20 years, and you can automatically, perhaps maybe you guys legally could just spend on, I'm not a lawyer, but me and Brock are. Or Rex. So, find out the why, and then I'll have a better answer for you, because it may not be just to save money.
You mean documented, recorded?
Yes, documented recorded. So the restricted easements,
Yeah.
right?
I will try to find out when this is new for you all. And-
It's not just us, it's all the utilities in the
Right,
state.
right. But do you have like an effect, like a start date? Did they say this is our new policy, or did
Well,
they just
had
start
approached, they had
asking?
approached us on the Catawba Avenue
Yeah,
widening
that's
and told us we needed to pay to move our utilities on Catawba Avenue. We said no.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
At least I don't get to hear from you about Catawba crawls anymore.
But
Thank you.
if I can just highlight something real quick, utility movement is one of the largest time suck and money suck in the DOT transportation. And in fact, I've been pushing them, we have legislation to do what the state of Florida and Georgia already do, is that they engineer it in part of the project and they pay for your stuff and they move it all at one time, because it is absolutely the one inhibitor to deliver projects in a timely and economically friendly fashion.
Well, it goes back to a lot of pole attachments where we can move, but we can't get AT&T or Verizon or
Right.
those guys to move their
Right,
stuff.
and you're lucky that the DOT actually pays you guys to move your stuff, because they do not for telecoms. So, there's a benefit there for the energy folks.
I always like to leave you with one little quote or line, whether it's the magistrate's office or the folks in the departments of the state, you're not really telling you what's going on. One of my partners has a line, he says, "Get all the liars in one room." And I think, maybe you guys would put it more articulately, but that's something that, there's a lot of stuff going on. Why hasn't it happened in 20 years? Why hasn't it happened in 3 years? So, Bill, you want to wrap us up and tell us what else is going
I'll
on?
remind everybody that next month we have our 3 mayors that will give a presentation on what's going on in the respective towns. So we're very excited about that. And in March, we've got Novant. So Mike's going to be putting together a program talking about the trends in healthcare and maybe concierge care that's taking place, and also wellness within our businesses. So looking forward to both of those two programs. And be remiss, again, if we didn't mention the AI Summit, you wanna, the date again?
February 25th, and it's an all-day event, 9 till 6, because that includes coffee in the morning and social hour at the end. And
And
lots of
lunch, a
opportunities.
great lunch.
in
I mean, it's just
between.
all day networking and it's gonna be vendors. It's hopefully going to be a packed house. And really all of the preeminent AI folks that are on the ground making this state run, so.
LKNChamberSummit.com. You can go there, or you can go to our website, LakeNormanChamber.org, but Lake Norman, LKNChamberSummit.com. Thank everybody for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Before you go, can I get a
Sure. You're not in a rush to get out of here.